A lot of men want to know, will I be a nice guy forever? The conventional wisdom in nice guy coaching is that you'll always be recovering from vestiges of the nice guy syndrome and that you're always going to be susceptible to falling back into nice guy patterns. But can some or all nice guy patterns actually be fully resolved or eliminated? Just how much can someone change? So, welcome to the Nice Guy Show. I'm your host, Ari Graff, and I'm joined by my co hosts, Faisal Kokar and Chuck Chapman. The three of us are coaches dedicated to helping nice guys because we are recovering nice guys ourselves. Together, we have decades of experience helping men level up. Our mission is to help men develop the confidence and the skills to get the love, sex, and success they desire. So, we throw around terms like recovery and cure. Like I'll talk about how recovery is that term is used when we're talking about mental illness, like a depression or schizophrenia. Recovery in that context is someone could have persistent symptoms, so symptoms that are long term, but the person can still become resilient. They can manage their symptoms well. They can find hope. They can have a meaningful life. Um, So, is that the right way to think about nice guy syndrome? That it's something that can be managed, but that the symptoms will always be there, or is it something different? Like, can nice guy syndrome pretty much be cured? You know, can we change to the point where we're radically different people, almost unrecognizable? So I think it's a really interesting question because it's bringing up this question around, is there a ceiling for change? And so my feeling, uh, as I've gone through my nice guy recovery process, so I'm using that term, is that I've made so much change in the last few years that in some ways I am unrecognizable. I'm a totally different dater. I'm a different parent. I'm doing these things very differently. I'm approaching my business in a very different way. Um, so am I still a nice guy? So that's a question I want to ask you guys. Chuck, how much change is possible for a nice guy?
This is a really interesting topic because I've shifted my thinking on this. Um, the First of all, it's just kind of like from a very clinical perspective. Let's just talk about what the nice guy syndrome is, because there's if you look up in the DSM, which is the manual that we use for diagnosing mental illness, there's nothing there that says nice guy syndrome. So from one
So we're
standpoint, the
making this
nice guy,
up.
yeah. And I mean, the nice guy syndrome is not a clinically diagnosable thing. So, if I'm working with a nice guy and I were to submit their, um, their diagnosis as nice guy syndrome, I don't think I'd get paid by the insurance company. In fact, I know I wouldn't. But what is the nice guy syndrome from a standpoint of a mental health? It's basically codependency and anxiety. So if we're looking at curability from the standpoint of uh, codependency and anxiety, both of those are what we would consider in the psychological field neuroses. So neuroses are oftentimes curable. The things that aren't curable are the things we talk about access to types of personality disorders. So
And
the long and the
access
short of
to
it,
we're talking about personality disorders, or sorry,
yes,
people's
that are in the
personality
DSM.
structure.
Right, right. So the nice guy in and of itself isn't really a something that's diagnosable. But I think that the symptoms are curable, and therefore the nice guy is curable. I used to think that nice guys, I would forever be a nice guy. I would forever be having to work on these things. I'd forever have to be aware of slipping back into these old patterns and behaviors. But more recently, I've come to a perspective that no, I think it is actually curable, and I think there's a way to cure it that leaves a permanent impact.
And we're going to save that cure for 10 minutes
Yeah,
into the podcast.
I'll
So
let you
keep
know what it
listening.
is coming up. Yeah.
Faisal, what's your opinion on how much change is possible for a nice guy?
It's that much, right? How long is a piece of string?
Sizable. Yes.
See how I see the recovery of the nice guy syndrome is the way I help guys to understand this is there are five, what I call five fractures that are the cause of the nice guy syndrome. And the way I describe it is that I've put them into stages. So there are five stages that we're at. So if you're at, say, for example, stage 5, which is the worst part, how I've labeled it is that those symptoms keep showing up 80% in your life. So 80% of the time, you're losing your cool. 80% of the time, you're over texting a woman. 80% of the times, you're being over available. Right? So I call that like you're at stage 5. If you're doing that like 80% of the time, 90% of the time, 100% of the time. Now, if you're doing this, say 20% of the time, that's stage 1. I say that's, you've done a lot of recovery there. So recovery isn't black and white. For me, recovery is the frequency. And what I call is that there's a sweet spot. If you're around about, I would say, stage 2 to stage 3, so around about, say, 35 to 45% of the time, those patterns are showing up. For 35-40% of the time you're making less excuses, and most of the time you're going to the gym. That means to me, that's recovery, because perfectionism wants us to be 100% cured. This isn't like a virus or disease that's 100% gone. This is something that you have evolved over time. And then humans are not binary. We're not like left or right, or this is cured, because you'll have bad days. So in those bad days, yeah, some symptoms might show up or might reoccur more. And then the good days, they don't occur as often. The sweet spot is when you get to a place of like, you know what? Life's good now. Yes, I can handle some of the crap, but I can manage some of the crap, but it's not as often. I'll have some rainy days, but also, most of my days are good days. To me, that's cure. That's recovery. That's what an integrated man is. Integrated man means, hey, I still have a bit of my awful side, the bad days, but I also have most of the days are good sides. To me, that's what makes a whole integrated man.
So it sounds like for you, maybe the recovery term is appropriate. But there's still, you could be very healthy, but you'll still have um, the potential to fall back into some of your patterns.
Absolutely. You're not recovered, it's recovery, or it's recovering. Right. So recovered, it's like saying to it's like a software. It's 100% bug free. That's what we think. That's it. It's perfect. There's nothing else. There's no other flaws that exist. But in human nature, our system, our programming is so old, and it's how I see it is like it's not just our childhood or traumas. It's our programming that's really old. It's like having the first iPhone. It's the first version of it. This is going to be miles difference to where you are now. But does that iPhone current one the perfect one? Can there be better one? Can it be improved? Can some of the bugs and things can be uh, reduced? Yes, for sure. There can be much better improvements made, but it's much more functional than the first one. You can do a lot more than you could do in the first one. The photo quality is much better. So to me, the recovery is the frequency of the challenges that less challenges that occur.
Chuck, do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I think that there's an issue that comes up within nice guy recovery that we tend to focus on the symptoms of the nice guy. Okay, if you do this, you're a nice guy. If you do this, you're a nice guy. And um, we even do this on our show. But I think the reality is, if you really want to cure the nice guy syndrome, you don't talk about the nice guy syndrome. You talk about the integrated man. You don't try to get rid of the symptoms of the nice guy. You try to employ in everything you do those things of the integrated man. And the more I focus on the integrated man and being the integrated man, the byproduct of it then is I'm no longer a nice guy. So rather than focusing on not doing something, not creating covert contracts, I focus on being clear and direct by not giving to give or caretaking. I focus on how to set boundaries. So I believe that the cure to the nice guy syndrome is not to get rid of the nice guy syndrome, but to be an integrated man.
I
That
think what you're saying is it's an identity shift.
it is a complete identity shift. Yeah.
And if you call yourself a recovering nice guy,
You're always giving yourself room to be a nice guy.
right? If you call yourself an integrated man, then your default setting is healthy behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't mean
And like I said,
perfect,
this is something
but
I've just recently come to. And this isn't, this is something like in my own life as I've been practicing different ideas of like embodiment and personas and identity shifts and things like that, that I realized that I've been going around seeing myself as a recovering nice guy, meaning, oh, there's room for me, I'll fuck up, I'll do something. Oh, I'm a nice guy. I'm in recovery. I don't have to do. And I think that's kind of bullshit. I think we kind of give ourselves an excuse then because we're always thinking about the nice guy syndrome when we really should be talking about what is an integrated man and what does an integrated man do.
I think it's such a good point. I mean, and it's actually clarifying things for me even as we talk. Even like Faisal will use the term high value man.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of overlap there.
Hmm.
It's practicing thinking about yourself in those terms as
Right.
opposed to someone recovering from an illness or a disorder.
Exactly.
Which is the same as health condition or something. I'm such a sufferer. I'm this.
Hmm.
So the thing
Keeps
is
you as a
that,
victim. Yeah.
yeah, and you're focused on the past. So, for example, the guys I help with, you become the high value man. You become the what I call the charismatic integrated man. That's where we're working towards. Yes, the charismatic integrated man will have some challenges. He'll fall, make some mistakes, but that's what makes him whole. That's what makes him that man, because he's not perfect. So the focus, the self image is a big shift when you can say, actually, this is how I show up. And then when you have those mistakes and say, well, integrated man makes those mistakes. It happens.
Yeah, and that's one of the things on the list of the integrated man is an integrated man doesn't strive to be perfect. He what was it? He doesn't strive to be perfect or gain the approval of others. Instead, he accepts himself just as he is, warts and all. An integrated male accepts that he is perfectly imperfect. That's
Do
straight
you
out
have
of a
that
Morris
sitting on your
Minds book.
desk?
I do, yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad idea just to have that right in front of you as a reference,
Hmm.
um, and to read that all the time.
Yeah. In fact, I have a printout of this that I oftentimes give my clients so that they can print it out and put it up next to them. If anybody wants it, just send me an email at chuck@chuck.cc and I'll email it to you in a PDF form.
Yeah. It's a man that you're becoming, and it's a man you're focusing on. It's always the destination. And like Tony Robbins says, where energy flows, where you focus on, that's where energy flows. So if you're focusing constantly on, hey, these are my faults, this is the problem, this
Right.
is me, I'm a nice guy, that's where the focus is. And because the focus is there, your energy is always going to be there. So when you shift your energy towards, the integrated man, the charismatic guy, the high value man, all of these things, they're new towards, they're new directions, they're new aims that we take a fire at.
it makes more sense now. The three of us were part of the founding team for Integration Nation. That's the online men's community that we're part of with Dr. Robert Glover, author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. So we talked about, do we call this new men's community Nice Guy Nation?
Hmm.
And I think he felt like that isn't what we want to. That's not what we want as a label, because we're practicing being integrated men. So Integration Nation, with which our coach colleague Tony Endelman came up with, fits better.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's our direction, it's our focus. That's where we're going, not where we're coming from. So that's where we're going. That's our focus.
So what are the most dramatic transformations you guys have made?
I think for me, a lot of it is comes down to confidence, assertiveness, and overcoming my tendency to procrastinate. These are the three things. These are the three core issues that I talk about when I'm coaching a guy. Is that nice guys they don't have confidence, they're not assertive, and they tend to struggle with procrastination. And the integrated man knows who he is, loves himself just as he is, warts and all. Integrated man knows what he wants. He's clear and direct, and he goes out and gets it. And the integrated man, doesn't put things off. He just, faces things head on. And in the 30-day recovery journal that I wrote, those 30 rules of recovering from the nice guy syndrome, they're all about being an integrated man. They're things to do, not things to avoid. So, and I think when we're in the masculine energy, the masculine does. So the integrated man does. These are all things to do. When we're in the feminine energy, it's all about the receiving. These are all the things that I need to, that I need to validate me or change in myself. So I think the more masculine energy approach is doing, being an integrated man, as opposed to sitting around and hoping that someone's going to come along and rescue you.
So identifying as a nice guy, there's a certain amount of passivity and victim identity that goes
It,
along with it.
it's a similar thing, and I tend to disagree with like some of the 12-step programs, because when you're in a 12-step program, you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Chuck, and I'm a alcoholic. I'm a addict. I'm a whatever. And I think that by continuing to identify, we're just reinforcing that in ourselves of this is who I am, and I can't change. I I love the 12-step program. I was benefited greatly from it, but ultimately, uh, you know, I'm not an alcoholic. I am a non-drinker, you know, and that for me is my identity shift. I just don't drink, And I'm sure there's people out there listening to this that are in the 12-step program that'll argue with that, and that's fine. But I want to have my personal identity align with um, my own values of who I am, and not be the sort of like just continuing to like identify with that the more negative aspects of myself.
It's a good point. So the addiction community could adopt something like an integrated person as
I'm a
what to
non-drinker.
move into.
I'm a non-smoker. I'm a non-user. And I think the more we
I'm imagining something stronger than that, even.
sure. I just think that once we get that into our psyche, like here's the thing. I know I'm not a heroin addict. I absolutely know that I'm not a heroin addict. Okay. Somebody were to offer me heroin, I would say no. I don't use heroin. I don't have to even think about it. If somebody were to offer me alcohol, I'd just be like, no, because I don't use alcohol. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And not to get too far into the weeds here about recovery, but I think that that's where the nice guy, when I'm like, oh, I'm a recovering nice guy, focuses on the symptom of the nice guy rather than the cure, which is I'm an integrated man.
Yeah, and strength and power, and there is, the transformations can be incredible, amazing. I've seen, things changed in myself. I was that anxious, needy, uh, tech guy who was struggling with women, to go through a whole transformation journey where I was like, is it possible to live like a playboy? Is it possible to have that confidence where everybody else is there? And it was, and it took time and it took effort, but that transformation was possible. And I've seen so many guys in my coaching practice, achieve the same results. Anything is possible. And I love what Les Brown's saying. It's possible. You've got to keep saying to yourself, I have mantras that I read on a daily basis. I have positive mantras saying, it's possible. I can become, this is what I'm becoming. This is where I'm going towards. All my stuff is towards something. I'm stable. I'm grounded. I'm assertive. All of these things. And it's not, sometimes, we can always have these mantras we're saying, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. I always say to the guys, before you buy into that, because a lot of guys will say, a lot of personal development saying, hey, I'm a strong person, I'm this person. But the similar message is, well, I don't feel that. What they're missing is the in between. It's, you don't have to be strong straight away, but you can, the next stop is, I'm working on this. I'm working on this. So that's like going from first to second gear, but you got to go through neutral first. And I always say that go to the neutral cycle and then you go to the second phase.
I wanted to ask you, like, is there any part of you that's worried about going back to the way you were before, being self-conscious and being that nerdy tech guy?
No, because I own it.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying is that's you cured that, right? It's not even a thought anymore. It's just like, I'm not a heroin addict, or I'm not, I don't drink alcohol.
Yes.
That's part of why I wanted to do this episode, to really highlight the transformation that people can make. That it's not just, that you're recovering from these patterns and you can keep them in check. We're men who are flourishing, who are expanding. And in some ways our lives are unrecognizable compared to what they were.
Yeah.
And
it's,
so
I love this point.
Way, the recovery term, I think, doesn't quite fit it.
Or maybe not, doesn't do it justice.
No. So, yes, if you're listening to the show, and you have a story of transformation, we'd like to hear it. It's inspiring to other men, other people. Thanks again for being part of the Nice Guy Show. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe, because this helps us to reach out to more men who need support. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, make sure to subscribe there as well. Go to niceguyshow.com to get on the mailing list. And if you like this podcast, check out episode number 25, Does Therapy Fail Nice Guys? Until next time.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show with certified Nice Guy recovery coaches Ari Graf, Chuck Chapman, and Faisal Kokar. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can listen to our latest episodes, and visit us on www.theniceguyShow.com. If you have any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, send us an email at support@theniceguyShow.com. Thanks for listening.